coming up now.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Dhruv Nath is a professor at MDI Gurgaon, director with Lead Angels and an angel investor. Earlier was a senior vice president with NIIT Limited. He has been a consultant to the top management of several organizations such as Glaxo, Gillette, Nestle, Indian Oil Corporation, Thermax, Bajaj Auto, etc., as well as to the Prime Minister of Namibia and the Chief Minister of Delhi. Dr. Nath has a BTech degree in electrical engineering and a PhD in computer science, both from IIT Delhi. He has written 4 books, the latest being Funding Your Startup and Others, Nightmares, co-authored with Shushanto Mitra and published by Penguin Random House. Okay, so that's the introduction of Dhruv, but I also was checking out his book. I mean, one of the reasons we have Dhruv with us today, because we really want to hear more about this very exciting book that he has penned with his colleague Shushanto, who is the co-author of the book. And I was just going through the first few pages. The link is shared um, in the meeting invite, I guess, to the Amazon, portal. And what I found was there's a very interesting foreword by Sanjeev Bikhchandani, founder and vice chairman of Naukri.com. And towards the end of his write up, he writes that I would strongly recommend that you read it and keep referring to it from time to time. As I have said earlier, the advice you will get from my friends Dhruv and Shushanto is very similar to what you will get from me. So have fun reading it, and I'm sure you will benefit from it. And these are the words by Sanjeev I just quoted. Okay, so that probably gives a sense of the experience and the understanding that Dhruv has about the domain as well as the funding. He himself is an investor, and I think we are really pleased to welcome him for sharing his insight and talk more about his upcoming book. Not upcoming, it is almost it is there, and I can see there are 47 reviews and all 5 stars. So it's amazing. Very few books I can see which have full rating. Okay, so congratulations, and the stage is yours, Dhruv. You can
Thank you
continue.
so much. Thank you so much, Deborko. So hi everyone. I I'm not able to figure out how many people there are. Okay, there are 18 right now.
I think there are 18. Few more might join, but I
That's
think
okay.
now
No issue.
there is a good ratio.
Yeah. So, I've been having a chat with. By the way, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, you are loud and
Oh,
clear.
okay, good. Because there is construction going on close to my house.
And just
So,
one more interruption, in
uh,
case you guys want to ask some questions, please write them on the chat. I will curate them and I'll throw these questions towards the end.
perfect, perfect. In fact, normally in sessions like these, questions and answers are the best part, right? No, actually, no. The best part is the tea and snacks, which unfortunately we are not getting right now. But the second best part is the questions and answers. Okay, so it's good to be with you guys. And one of the things I have been doing, as Debarko mentioned, is over the last 6 years, I have been spending a lot of time with young people. Right, I'm a professor, so 20 years I've been a prof at MDI, and I spend time with young people. But over the last 6-7 years, I've spent a lot of time with either founders of startups or people who wanted to create startups, and it's been a very, very, very positive experience because I keep learning from you guys. I keep learning from young people like you, and whatever I learn I share with the next young guy I meet, and ultimately I share it in my book, right? So it's been a terrific experience. Unfortunately, during COVID times I'm not able to meet you guys, but once COVID is over, I'll be very happy to meet you guys over coffee or burgers or whatever at CCD, and I'll pay for the coffee. Don't worry, you don't have to pay. So let me just start off, and I will start by sharing my screen. Just hold on. Okay. So can you see this, all of you? Yeah, you'll have to tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
We can see this.
Okay, great.
Thank
Great. So I plan to talk about two things, as Devorko mentioned. One is, this is the book we have written, and I don't know if you can see. Can you see my face? I don't think you can. Right. Anyway. Um.
Yeah, you can. We all can see you as well as your screen.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. Because I can't see my face. Doesn't matter. So this is the book. Um. This is the book that we've written, and I must tell you, it was great fun to write, and hopefully, it will be fun to read, and equally, hopefully, it will be useful to read as well. So I'll do it in two parts. Part one of the things we mentioned in the book is a framework called Persistent, Persistent. And that's a framework that we use to try and evaluate how good or how bad or how likely a startup is to become successful. Obviously, it can't be a guarantee, there's no guarantee in life, but what is the likelihood that it's going to be successful? Number one. Number two, what is the likelihood that it will get funded by an investor? So that's part one. I'll talk about the persistent framework, which is picked up from the book. And part two will be I will talk about the stages of funding. What stages of funding you normally go through, and at each stage, what it is that the investor looks for before he takes a call. All right. So two parts. And incidentally, in between, if you want to ask me questions, you're welcome. Or if you want, we can do it at the end of the session. Either way, I'm okay. So this is part one. And what I'll share with you is, by the way, whatever I'm sharing is picked up from the book. So this is one of the stories that we have talked about in the book. It's a very interesting startup called Squirrel. And it is not this, by the way, is not a spelling mistake. This is the way the founder wanted to spell it. So what does Squirrel do? So first of all, anytime you sit in the park and watch squirrels in action, you will notice that they are doing something interesting. They find food. Some of the food they eat, but some of the food they save. And why do they save it? Because there will be some days on which they will not be able to get food. Right? Just give me 1 minute. I close the window. There's a little noise coming. Yeah. So, for example, in the monsoons, they may not be able to come out, they may not be able to find food, and therefore they need to save food for times when they will need it. All right. Now, similarly, if you look at human beings, again, human beings also need to save. Obviously, they don't need to save food, but they need to save money. Right? One of the fundamental problems with saving, and I'm sure you would agree with me, is that there are far too many temptations, right? It requires discipline. It requires saying no to temptations. Very simply, you've seen, let's say, a great new motorbike from Royal Enfield. Now you have no choice. You have to buy it, right? Or there is a great new movie in town. You have only 500 rupees in your pocket, which is enough for the movie ticket and the popcorn, right? You have to spend it. There is no choice. So, there are far too many temptations for human beings to save, and therefore saving does not happen. So, the solution, and in fact, I will take you back to your grandmother's time because that is where the solution was implemented. So, your grandmother, if you remember, would have had something like what you see on the screen, which we call a gullak, right? Or in English, you might call it a piggy bank, right? Now, this is a little container which you cannot open, but there is a little slot here which you can see, and in that slot you can put in coins, right? And you can't open it, which means what is gone in has gone in till you break the gullak. So now, how does this work? Um, let's say your grandmother buys uh, sabzi worth say 9 rupees 80 paise from the sabzi wala. Okay. And she gives him a 10 rupee note. He will give her 20 paise back in change. That 20 paise your grandmother would put into the gullak. Right. Similarly, if she spends, let's say, 12 rupees 90 paise, that 10 paise which is left over gets put into the gullak. Right. And therefore it gets saved. So every time she spends money, a little bit gets saved. Correct? Now, the most important reason why this works is that it is painless. Right? And the reason why it's painless is that, if you're spending 9 rupees 80 paise, spending an extra 20 paise doesn't really hurt you. And that 20 paise is not spent, it is just saved away. All right. So it becomes a painless process because the amounts you are saving are very, very tiny. So what Squirrel did was they learned from this and they said, okay, we will now automate this gullak. And how they did it was they said, okay, we will create an app. So it's all phone based. They create an app. Now, every time you spend money other than cash, so every time you spend money either by issuing a check or by using Paytm or by using UPI or doing net banking or your credit card or any one of these, what normally happens is you will get an SMS, right? Typically either from your bank or from a guy like Paytm. And that SMS tells you how much you have spent, right? So the Squirrel app asks you for permission to access these SMSs, right? And therefore it has access to your SMS. Now what it does is it knows how much you spent every time. So what it does is at the end of the week, it totals up your expenses. So let us say your expenses are uh, 1,475 rupees. Okay. What it now does is it rounds up this amount to the nearest 100. So 1,475 becomes 1,500, and that 25 rupees is saved by Squirrel. Okay, so it works very, very similarly to the gullak, where whatever you spend during the week, it is rounded up and the little bit of change, which could be 15 rupees, could be 20 rupees, could be 40 rupees, whatever, that is saved. Okay, so it works exactly the same way as the gullak would. And of course, one thing that Squirrel does is, just to motivate the saver, it actually puts it into the amount that is saved is put into some kind of fixed deposit, which we call a liquid fund. So, you get some little returns every day. And therefore, the guy who's saving is motivated to save more rather than saying, boss, you put in your money, it'll remain where it is. So, to that extent, it is better than the gullak. You're actually earning a little bit as well. Okay. Now there is one huge benefit over the gullak. One, of course, is the fact that you're earning a little money. But the other big benefit is that this is automatic. You don't need to remember to save that 20 rupees, 15 rupees, 25 rupees. Unlike your grandmother who had to remember 20 paise hain, mujhe gullak mein dalna hai. Right? You don't have to remember. It's automatic. Okay. So this is how they would get customers by getting them to save. And incidentally, their focus is on young people. So all of you in this audience are potential customers for these guys. And I would suggest once this session is over, just go to their website or maybe download the app and see if you're interested. Right. So now these guys got people who were interested in saving. Now they said, okay, now that you started saving, so far we are not charging you any money. Now we will give you other financial products and charge for them, right? So, for example, we'll give you insurance, we'll give you loans, we'll give you we'll let you invest in mutual funds, right? And for these, we will charge something. Why? It could be a monthly retainership fee, or it could be per transaction, right? So that's how they make money. So this is the background of Squirrel. Now, what I'll do now is using the example of Squirrel, and that's only one example. I can take many others. Using the example of Squirrel, I wanted to share with you guys the persistent framework that I talked about in the book. So let's look at these letters one by one. So first of all, the first letter in persistent is P, problem. Are you solving a problem? Please remember, if you're not solving a problem for the potential customer, nobody is going to come to you, and definitely nobody is going to pay you, right? So the first thing you have to make sure, in case you create a startup, is you are solving a problem for the targeted customer, whichever customer you want to solve the problem for. So in this case, the target I told you was the youngster, either the college student or the person who's passed out, typically in the age group of 18 to about 30. The young person who so far has not really got into saving and investing. And definitely it is solving a problem because it is helping the person to save, right? Second, is there an earnings model? Which means, are you going to make money somewhere? And a very, very important thing here is, will the customer pay you? Right now, for saving, for helping him save, the customer will not pay you. But for helping him buy an insurance policy, yes, he's willing to pay you. For helping him get a loan, a bank loan, or any loan from an NBFC, yes, he'll be willing to pay you. So ultimately, in the beginning, they did not have an earnings model, but ultimately they had an earnings model, right? Where they were actually earning money. So I've covered P and E. Now let's look at S, size of the market, right? And here you must remember one thing. Um, when you're creating a startup, one big reason why you want to create a startup is you want it to grow rapidly into a large, successful business. And you can do that only if the market size in which you're operating is large enough, right? If it's a tiny market, then you can't grow because the market will limit the amount you can grow. All right. So size of the market has to be huge. And if you look at Squirrel, obviously it's a very large market because, potentially, you look at 130 crore people in India. I would imagine about 40% of them would be youngsters, and the entire thing is the target segment for Squirrel, right? So it's a huge market. Another important issue is, not only should the market be large, you should have what is called a scalable startup. And incidentally, if you notice, I am picking up letters from the word persistent, right? So I picked up the first S and now I'm picking up the second S. What does scalability mean? So you may have a huge market, but can you grow rapidly within that market? That means, can you scale up rapidly? That is scaling. Okay. Fundamental question: how scalable is Squirrel? And quick answer to that is, it is highly scalable because it is a digital business. Anything which has a lot of manual involvement, right, is less scalable, because every time you want to increase your revenues, you have to add manpower. You have to have you have to add a place and infrastructure where the manpower will sit. You'll have to add laptops, PCs, whatever. So the more the manual involvement, the less the scalability. Squirrel is a pure digital business, a pure technology business, and therefore it is highly scalable. So that's not an issue. Okay. Next, risks. Every business obviously will have risks, right? So it's important for the startup to understand what those risks are. And one of the biggest risks, by the way, is the possibility of a competitor entering the space that you are in, competing with you, and potentially killing you. And that's one of your biggest risks. So what we talk about in successful startups is, you need to have something that we call an entry barrier, right? What's an entry barrier? So entry barrier is, this is your business. I will do something within this business so that the competitor is not allowed to enter and compete with my business. That's my entry barrier. Okay. Now, just let's take a look at the entry barrier of a squirrel. By the way, one solid entry barrier is if you can have a highly innovative solution, and if you can have a couple of patents, that's a very strong entry barrier because obviously nobody can copy the patent, right? So let's look at squirrel's entry barrier. Actually, in the case of squirrel, initially when they started, the entry barrier was fairly low. You know why? Because anybody can do this. Anybody can say, boss, I will take 3 months, develop a similar app, and I will just make it available to people. So it's a very, very low entry barrier business. However, over time, the brand started getting built up. So many youngsters that these guys have got, they now believe in it, they trust it, they know that these guys are going to make money for them, and therefore they are recommending Squirrel to their friends. So over time, an entry barrier tends to get built up because of the trust and brand, but still, it is not significant. If there is somebody who comes in with a lot of money and says, I'm going to kill Squirrel, potentially you can. So, which is why Squirrel has to grow very, very rapidly. And that is why scalability, the issue I mentioned earlier, becomes extremely important. Right? And by the way, entry barrier usually builds up over time. Initially, when you start, you often do not have any entry barrier. So, I have covered so far all these. There are three more things to be covered as part of persistent. What do you do if the market is crowded? Right now, we talked about Squirrel offering insurance products. We talked about Squirrel offering loans. There is such a huge number of people offering loans today, right? Every day, I get 4 or 5 phone calls from companies who want to offer loans, right? Or if you look at investment in mutual funds, there are so many agents, sitting in every colony who say, boss, I will help you. I will just take a very small commission, right? So it's a very, very crowded market that Squirrel has got into. And therefore, what they decided was, we will not, the problem is when you get into a crowded market, which has a lot of competitors. Devorko, this is very good tea you sent me. So, when you're in a crowded market, you'll find it very difficult to grow and survive because there is everybody competing for the same business, right? So then what you need to do is you need to identify a niche, which is a portion of the market which is not crowded and which is large enough for you to grow in, right? So what these guys did at Squirrel is that they identified the niche of young people, right? Because older people are already into the habit of saving, already into the habit of investing. They already take out insurance. The young guys don't, right? So that is an untapped, uncrowded niche. And therefore, the founder of Squirrel decided this is the niche I will be in. And this niche itself is a huge niche. Okay. And incidentally, once these guys get used to me, even when they grow beyond 30, 35, 40, 45, if they have been having, if their experience with me has been good, chances are they will continue. Okay. So that's niche. Now, two more things. One, you may have a brilliant business model, you may have taken care of risks, huge market size, patent, etc., etc. But the final proof is, are you actually getting customers? And I'll call that traction. Are you getting customers? Are you getting paid customers? Are your customers coming back to you? Are they what is called sticky customers, right? Are they recommending other customers? And therefore, are you growing month on month, right? And that is what we call traction. So ultimately, the final proof of your business is not just your business model or your entry barrier or any of these. It is, are you actually getting a growing base of customers month on month? One more thing, beyond traction, which is the team, right? And the team obviously starts with the founders. So, sometimes we say, in fact, if you talk to investors, they normally say, look, the one thing we look at more than anything else is the caliber of the founder. What kind of founder is it? Is he or she passionate about the business? Does he understand the business really well? Does he have some level of experience? Is he Can he, even when there are downturns, when there are ups and downs in the business, will he be able to go through, right? So the founder becomes extremely important, and that is the team that I mentioned, right? So just to summarize, this is the persistent framework, PERSISTENT, right? And this is what successful startups normally have, and unsuccessful startups usually miss out on one or more of these. Now, by the way, I must tell you, this is not something we've created out of the blue. This framework has been developed by us after examining a lot of startups. And I told you, I've been with startups for the last 7 odd years. And my colleague Sushanto, who's the co author, he has been with startups for the last, I think, 20 odd years. In fact, he used to head the incubator at IIT Bombay, right? So, we have spent so much time with startups, which is why we realized there is a need to create one such framework. And that's what we've created. Okay. I just want to mention one thing, which is, there is also the English meaning of the word persistent. And that's equally important because if you're creating a startup, you will always have ups and downs. These days, for example, there is such a huge down, right? COVID has hit everybody, right? You've just got to be there. You've just got to go on and on and on and on. Keep doing it, right? And the only word for that is persistent. So if you give up when things go down, or you say mar gaya, kya karu, COVID aa gaya, then you're not the right person to create a startup, right? So you have to be the English meaning of the word persistent as well, which means you have to keep on and on and on and on fighting, right? So that's our persistent framework. And with that, I come to the end of part one, right? What I'll do now is I will uh, get on to the next one, which is, yeah, just 1 minute. Give me a minute.
You lost your screen, Dhruv.
Yeah, I know, correct. I'm just doing
Oh,
it. Yeah, just doing it. Yeah. That's another PPT. So I thought I'd stop sharing and then, yeah. So this is now part two. Can you see this? Can you people see this? Please let me know the screen.
yeah, yeah, we can.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
So what I'll talk about now is what we call the stages of funding, right? Who are the different kind of investors? Why do they invest? What do they look for? And so on. So, first of all, and by the way, I am talking about equity funding. I'm not talking about debt funding because loans normally for a startup are not very easy to get. Usually, you will get some kind of grant if you're part of an incubator, but most of the time, you'll have to look at equity funding, which means you are looking at somebody buying shares in your company. So, the first people who you'll normally go to when you want funding is what we call the friends and family round, right? So, chacha, mama, friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, father of girlfriend, mother of girlfriend, etc., right? People who know you. Now, the important thing here is that these people are known to you. Okay, obviously, your chacha, your mama, your friend are known to you, and therefore they may not ask you too many questions, right? They will not want too many details of the business, and they will be willing to give you money at a very early stage, right? कि ठीक है यार, I know you, you're a good boy or you're a good girl, here is 3 lakhs, here is 5 lakhs, take it and run your business, right? So it's more informal. They don't need too many details. They won't ask too many questions. But obviously, the amount they put in is typically going to be not very large. Normally, the friends and family round will put in anywhere between about 5 and 25, 30 lakhs, right? Except, of course, if you happen to be part of Mukesh Ambani's family, then I would not put any upper limit on getting money from the family. So anyway, friends and family is the first place to get funding. The next place is what we call angel investors. Now, I'm sure you've heard the term. Basically, these are the first external investors in your company. That means the people who don't know you, your friends and family know you. These guys, angel investors or angels, they don't know you, right? And because they don't know you, they need a lot more proof. So they need far more details about your startup to be convinced, right? So they would want to see, look, who are your customers? What is your business model? What are your projections for the next 2 years? If you've completed a financial year, show me your balance sheet, and it has to be an audited balance sheet, right? So they will look for some proof. Ideally, they will look for, are there enough customers already coming to you? Are you already getting some level of revenues? They will look for this, which the friends and family will not look for. They will give you money even before you get your customers, but the angel investor will say, boss, so show me some customers. Otherwise, I'm not convinced. Okay, so they will normally ask for more proof, more details, more detailed evaluation, but they will put in more money than friends and family, right? And normally in the angel round, you can get anywhere between about 25 lakhs and about 3.5 crores, right? And 3.5 crores, by the way, is $500,000, right? So roughly about 20-25 lakhs to about $500,000 is what you will get in the angel round, right? So that's the next round after the friends and family round. Now, fundamental question: what do angels look for? Here, let me interrupt for a minute. Can you people unmute yourselves and tell me what angels will be looking for while I have my tea? Anyone? You saw the first
Maybe
part of the presentation. Now tell me what angels look
potential
for.
growth,
Yes.
potential growth in the business.
Yes.
Business
An
plan.
innovative idea.
Yes. Agreed.
Market size.
Yes. So ultimately, angels look for exactly the same thing. They look for persistent startups. You must remember one thing, very, very important. When an angel invests in a company, why does he invest? He invests in a bright idea, which is getting customers, which is getting repeat customers, which is growing rapidly, which has an entry barrier, etc., which is taking care of risks and so on. The founder wants exactly the same thing. He wants the company to do well. The investor also wants the company to do well. So ultimately, they have exactly the same thing in mind, right? So what the founder needs to do is exactly what the angel investor also wants, which is the persistent framework. Agreed? So that's angel investing, and I'll take a little more about angel investing just to talk about angel networks. See, once upon a time, I will say in the early 2000s, so about 15 years back, you only had a few rich angels, right? Now, rich angel would be who? Narayan Murthy, Nandan Nilekani, Azim Premji, founders of, companies like, let's say, Mahindra and Mahindra, okay, Ratan Tata. So there were only a few of these rich guys, and they would put in big amounts on their own, right? So they would put in 1 crore, 2 crores on their own. One of the things which was important at that time is that all these rich angels, people like Narayan Murthy, they had their own analysts, they had their own lawyers, their accountants. So they could easily review, analyze startups, check out, their financials, check out whether they had met their legal requirements and so on. So they had their own people, right? So they needed no support. Now what has happened is in the last 7-8 years, suddenly angel investing has boomed, right? And if you ask me today, there are probably about 30,000 angel investors in the country, and the numbers are growing, right? In fact, I am a member of Lead Angels, and we find we have far more members this year, in spite of COVID, than we had last year, right? And we have about 200 members right now, and it's growing very, very rapidly. And by the way, the term which I use for these angels is I call them Aam Aadmi angels, right? And please do not confuse this with Kejriwal's party. There's no connection. Basically, what I'm saying is common man. So I am an angel investor. I'm an Aam Aadmi angel investor. Why? Because I put in only 5 lakhs at a time or 10 lakhs at a time. I'm not a rich guy like Nandan Nilekani who can put in 6 crores. Right? I'm not that category. And most angel investors today are in this category. Right? So now, given the fact that you have these young angels, these Aam Aadmi angels, remember one thing, they are not super rich. Right? I am a professor. I am not super rich. Right? I do not have my own accountant. I don't have my own analyst. I don't have my own lawyer. I am on my own. Therefore, I need support. Where do I get the support from? That is where you have angel networks, right? So an angel network basically is an organization which supports both startups in getting funding and angel investors in providing that funding, right? So the way it works is you have an angel. So for example, I am a member of Lead Angels Network, right? So Lead Angels Network is Bombay based, but it also has a branch in Delhi and Bangalore. So Lead Angels, what they do is they have about 200 members, each of which is an angel investor, right? All the time we keep getting requests from startups for funding, right? And what the Lead Angels network does is it does the analysis of these startups, figures out which ones are decent to invest in, lets them make presentations to its investors, investor members, does the due diligence, which means does the analysis of the balance sheet, checks out whether all the agreements are in place, have they complied with all government regulations, etc., or not, makes out the shareholder agreement, and finally the members invest and sign. Right. So the angel network basically supports both the angel investor and the startup in ensuring that the funding happens. And like I told you, Lead Angels Network is one of the leaders in the country, and I am a part of Lead Angels. So that's angels, right? Then you come to the next stage of investing or funding, which is venture capitalists or VCs, right? There is one fundamental difference between VCs and angels. One fundamental difference, right? And let's look at what that fundamental difference is. The angel will put in his own money, whereas the VC will put in somebody else's money. All right. So the VC is like a mutual fund manager where he has taken investments from different investors and he said, okay, I have now got a total of 500 crores. This 500 crores, I will now decide, I meaning the VC manager, the fund manager, I will now decide which startup to put money into so that I can get good returns for the investors who put money into my fund. All right. So he's not investing his own money. And, therefore, because of the fact that the angel is investing his own money and the VC investing is investing somebody else's money, the angel potentially can take more risk because it's his own money, right? But the VC has to take less risk, which is why the VC normally invests at a later stage than the angel, which means he needs more revenues, more proof, far more details analysis, a far more detailed evaluation of the company before he takes a decision to invest. However, at that stage, he will invest much more money than the angel would, right? And typically, VCs will put in anywhere between 3.5 crores upwards, right? 3.5 crores, as I mentioned to you, is $500,000. So they will put in anywhere between 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, anything. It could go up anywhere, right? So that's the venture capitalist, which is the next stage of funding. Fundamental question. And again, I'll ask you the same question. What do VCs look for? What do they look for? Anybody?
Solid fundamentals of the company.
A good growth
Yes.
Brand value.
High revenue.
I'm looking for that one word. Sorry?
Exit.
good growth rate.
Everybody wants an exit, but for that exit, what kind of startup will they invest in?
Maybe
Scale
10x. 10x.
Persistent, isn't it? See, right now you don't know whether he'll grow 10x or not. Therefore, you have to look at all these things, right? So, point is very simple. The founder, the startup needs to be persistent. The angel investor wants him to be persistent, and the VC also looks for persistent startups. So, if you're following this kind of framework, then the chances are your likelihood of getting funding improve. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee, right? You can still do a terrible job, but your chances improve. So, what we suggest to startups is please take a look at each one of these and just make sure that you satisfy each one of them. Okay, so that's VCs. I will. What's the time? How do I have 5 minutes? Yeah,
Hi, please, Dhruv, you can take time. Yeah.
sure, sure. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so the next category is what we call strategic investors, right? And let's try and look at the difference between the strategic investor and the VC. See, the angel investor and the VC, they are what we call financial investors. And you're right, you rightly said, these guys uh, look for a company where they can put in money, and at some stage, maybe 4 years, 5 years down the line, they get an exit. Exit means they sell their shares to hopefully the next guy who comes in, the next investor who comes in, right? So they are financial interest investors. They want to make money directly. A strategic investor is a little different. Take an example. Suppose ICICI Bank says, I am going to invest in a microfinance startup, right? You know what microfinance is, right? Where they give funding to ladies or women in the rural environment, groups of women in rural India, right? In villages. And why would ICICI Bank want to do this? Not because they want to put in money and make an exit, get an exit in 4 years. No, they want this to become an extension of ICICI Bank's business, right? So I have my banking business in ICICI Bank. Now I want to take this forward and make it a, um, uh, include this kind of microfinance as part of my entire banking process. So I have a very long-term interest in this. I don't want to exit. It is an add-on to my business, right? That is what we call a strategic investor, right? And very often, in place of VCs at that stage, you will be looking at strategic investors. The big advantage of a strategic investor is that you get the backing of a big guy, right? So obviously, if ICICI Bank invests in you, you get their backing. You have the advantage of taking using their entire network, their entire sales team, etc., 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 right? So strategic investor is the other possibility. Just to summarize, so these are the three stages: friends and family, angels, VCs. I've just clubbed VCs and strategic together. So the amount of investment goes up, the level of risk comes down, and the valuation, which means the amount they are paying per share, will also keep going up. All right. So that's roughly a summary of our, the stages of funding. These are just some terms which you'll keep hearing all over the place. So angel funding is normally 30 to 50 lakhs up to about 3.5 crores. Uh, then you have something called a Series A, Series B, Series C. I've just shown them to you here. But please remember, these are ballpark figures. I mean, if you want to raise $1 million and you call it Series B, nobody is going to put you into jail, right? You're not breaking any rule, you're not breaking any law, right? But by and large, this is the range that people talk about. Just remember, these are ballpark figures. Just to summarize, the pluses and minuses of funding. The plus obviously is you need funds for growth. The other advantage is that the investor typically will have a lot more experience than the founder, and therefore mentoring can be used, right? And that can help the company. And the other thing is the investors will have their own networks, their own contacts, and that can be used, particularly in a B2B business. Of course, there are negatives also. So one is when you're getting funding, you're diluting your own shareholding as a founder. And the other thing is, this fortunately does not happen very often, pressure for results. But if you go to the wrong guy for funding and the wrong guy says, boss, maine paisa dal diya, every quarter I'm going to sit on your head and say, where is my return? Where is my return? Where is my return? That is terrible, because he will not allow you the freedom to build your business. So never take money from the wrong guy. When you take money, it should be the right guy who gives you the freedom to build your business over time. But these businesses take time. They are not something you can do in, 1 month, 2 months, 1 quarter, 2 quarter, right? So that's a summary of the process of funding. And I think with that, I come to the last PPT. So I will just stop sharing here. And yeah. So now, we have 26 people now, which includes me and Devorko. So 24, I guess. Yeah. So now that I've finished, let's open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Dhruv, for the wonderful and lucid talk. I think we understood most of it. Anybody from the students or the other participants who wants to ask question, kindly unmute yourself and ask, since there are not many people.
Yeah.
I think we can accommodate one-on-one discussion. Thank you.
How do I get to know angel investors after the friends and family stage?
Okay, so that question was asked by Saurabh. So, like I told you, there are today about 20 to 25 angel networks in the country. So just go on to the net, right? Look for angel investor. For example, look for lead angels, right? You'll find it. You'll get their website. You'll get their email ID. Just contact them. They will tell you where to apply. Just apply there, and that's fine. Similarly, you'll find other angel networks. For example, you have the oldest one is called Indian Angel Network, which is Delhi based, right? Again, you can find that on the net. Then you have guys like Chennai Angels, Hyderabad Angels. So there are lots of these angel networks. Just go on to Google, type angel networks in India, and you'll find lots of them. And just contact them. They're all very keen to look at your startup, because everybody is keen to get good startups to fund. And if you want to contact lead angel, just send me a mail and I'll put you in touch.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else wants to ask?
Yeah, I think Shubhangi wants to
Yes,
speak.
sir.
Hi, Shubhangi. Go ahead.
Hi. So the thing is, actually, our startup, the idea is in very initial stages. Like just 2 days ago, we bought the domain and all that stuff. So we do not have a very solid business, plan, or we don't have much idea about it, like how much to invest and how much to invest in product that we're thinking. So how should we start? Like we are very vague in that.
See, okay, so first of all, at this stage, funding is not what you're looking for. At this
Yes,
stage,
sir.
the ideal thing is, are you a student here or are you part
Yes,
of the
sir. I
incubator?
am a student in Triple IT Delhi.
Okay. So, so at this stage, what you really need is ideally somebody who can spend time and mentor you, right? There are two ways to do that. Fortunately, there are lots of guys like us who have experience, who are quite happy to spend time. And secondly, one good way, I am assuming there is an incubator, there's a running incubator in Triple IT Delhi. One good way is to apply to the incubator, join up there, because if you are there, the incubator will keep bringing people who mentor you, and B, very important, you will keep learning from your peers, the other people in the incubator. So that's a good way to start. So at this stage, money is not what you're looking for. What you're really looking for is guidance, right? And there are these two ways. So there are lots of mentors available. Like I said, lead angels, I do a lot of mentoring. In fact, if you want, if those of you who are interested, I normally take a session where I talk about how fundable is your startup, where I analyze individual startups, right? And you can go through that, and hopefully that will be a good starting point.
Okay, thank you,
But
sir.
one person who's willing to spend time is extremely important. And
Okay,
ideally,
sir.
it should be one consistent mentor rather than a different person every 5 days.
Okay, so I can see a few questions
And by the
popping
way,
out on the chat box.
yeah, sorry,
The first one, yeah,
sorry,
you
just
can go
1 minute.
through it.
By the way, if you want to pick up a copy of the book, that has a lot of stories. You'll probably learn a lot from that.
All right. So the first question is by Rishabh Jalan. Sir, how to find good and capable co-founders? How to judge which of your friends are good enough or not?
I think there are two, three. It's a good question. The answer is fairly long and complex, right? So there are several things that you need to look at. Most important thing by far, most important is that you got to trust the guy, right? If you have a friend, if you have somebody you know who you can trust, because please remember, you are running the company jointly, right? You're not running it alone, right? So most important, you have to trust him, and therefore don't ever take on a completely unknown guy as a co-founder. So that is issue number one. Number two, um, you know a startup can only succeed if the founders are solidly passionate and very keen that this is their life's ambition, right? If there is somebody who says, हाँ ठीक है, maybe yes, it's a good idea, चलो try करते हैं, देखी जाएगी, he's not the right guy for you, right? It has to be somebody who says, wow, this is what I want to do in life, right? And both of you do it together. So that level of passion, that level of interest in this startup becomes extremely important. Third thing, which is also important, is ideally. So the first two are extremely important. Third one is ideal, where two co-founders ideally should have complementary capabilities, right? Which means if I am a very solid marketing guy, but I don't know tech at all, and I'm trying to create a tech startup, ideally my co-founder should understand tech very well, right? So between the two of you, you cover everything that is required. So ideally, you need a co-founder who complements your capabilities. Or, there are some guys who never go out and talk. They just sit, but they do a great job of execution. And there are some guys who are brilliant sales guys, right? That combination is good, right? So ideally, you want somebody with complementary skills. But I think the most important is the first two I've mentioned. You got to trust the person, and it's almost like getting married. You don't trust the person, how will you marry that person, right? So you got to trust the person, and the person should be equally passionate about your concept.
The next question is from Yash. He wants to understand what are the pros and cons in getting seed funding, which is usually 3% for 4 and 5 lakhs.
Sorry, can you say it again? Seed funding, beyond that I didn't
Seed funding, what are the pros and cons in getting seed funding, which is usually 3% for roughly 4 and 5 lakhs at initial stage?
yeah
So,
so,
yeah.
so first of all, you know giving up 3% of your company is not a big issue. All right, giving up 40% of your company, 30% is a big deal, right? I would say if you're getting this kind of funding, let's say from an incubator, and you're getting 5 lakhs and they're taking away 3%, it's a very good idea, because initially you will always need money. It's a good idea to take that money. The only thing is you should also look at what else is coming. So if it is a incubator which is putting in that money, it's a very good idea. If it is a person who can actually add value to your company and he's putting in those 5 lakhs, very good idea. But if it is a lalaji who sits on your head every 20 days and says mera profit kahan hai, mera profit kahan hai, don't take that money. It doesn't make sense, right? So it's a good idea to take it, but from the right person. And 3%, don't worry, that dilution is very tiny.
All right. One more question that I can see on the chat is what is a good time to be an angel investor? I recently joined Venture Catalysts and a recent PhD from Triple.
Okay. So any time is a good time to be an angel investor. I mean, you can do it at any time. I must clarify a couple of things. You must realize angel investing is a risky business, right? So if, let's say you're a salaried guy and your entire salary is going into your expenses because you have to take care of the family, take care of the kids, pay the rent, etc., etc., then it is not the right time to get into angel investing. When you get into angel investing is when you have a large enough corpus you have built up. And out of that, because angel investing is risky, don't put the entire corpus into it, right? So typically what you'll do, ideally put in maybe 5% or 10% of your corpus. So most angel investors are either senior salaried guys, so let's say 35 plus, or they are businessmen, or they are professionals, like chartered accountants, like lawyers, like doctors, and so on, right? Young salaried guys usually do not become angel investors because the level of risk is actually fairly high, right? Obviously, you're putting money into a startup. You have no idea what direction that startup will take. If it does well, you could multiply your money 20 times, but if it doesn't do well, that money is gone. So by the way, that's one more reason why you should normally diversify um, your investment. So don't put money only into one startup. If you're an angel investor, let's say if you're putting in 50 lakhs, ideally put in that 50 lakhs into 10 different companies, 5 lakhs each. Because then, even if 6 of them die, at least there will be that one or two which do well and therefore get you a good exit.
So, Dhruv, I don't see any other question, but I'm sure some of the students would have more questions, and we have sufficient time to take them. I had a question to ask you, which is what is the kind of success rate that you observe as a angel investor?
Sorry,
In the
somebody else was speaking.
So, hi, Dhruv, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but somebody else also spoke in between.
Saurav, do you want to
Yes,
ask
sir.
something? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
please go ahead.
Sir, suppose I have a very good idea of a startup. What is the maximum amount Triple ITT can fund me or invest in my business, and what would be the percentage of my business they will be occupying?
That question Deborko can answer. I am not the right guy to answer.
What was that? I couldn't hear you, Saurav.
So his question was, if I have a great idea, how much will Triple IT be willing to invest in me, and what percentage will they take?
Well, Triple ITD has a very flexible and kind of a setting. I think you can check out with the incubation managers. I don't think they ask more than a small single digit equity, depending on the kind of help. I think there is a bit of background noise, so I would request Saurav, is it from your side or? Yeah, thank you. I think, as I said, kindly get in touch with the incubation folks. Triple ITD offers a lot of support and services through their incubation center, and typically they ask for some small single digit depending on the kind of help they do. And of course, if the money is involved in that. Okay, so that apart, I think how to convince parents of co-founders so as they don't pressurize us to sit in college placements. That's another question that I can see asked by Rishabh Jalan.
Okay, so my comment there is see, if you have a good degree, even if you create a startup and it fails, right, at some stage you will be able to get a job, not a problem, right? And triple IT obviously is a very good degree, not an issue. However, my general advice to young people is it's always a good idea to get experience in the real world before you take the plunge. So I would rather not have freshers creating a startup. I would rather have somebody who has worked for 2 years, 3 years, faced the music, seen what the world is like, seen what it is like to sell, see what it is like, what is it that the world really requires, what is it that's going to attract customers, and then create your startup. So I'm not a great votary of passing out and immediately creating your startup, unless you come from a business family, because then you have experienced that, with your father's business, right? So generally, I would say it's a good idea to get experience, understand what's happening, and then create your startup.
So you mentioned about your one-to-one sessions where you sit with the startups and know their ideas and just mentor them. How can we check on that, and how can
Yeah.
we
So,
contact you?
yeah. So first of all, it's not a one-to-one session. It will be typically about 20 people together, but in that we are able to analyze multiple startups. So I think the best option, if you're interested, is Deborko. Could you share my email ID with everybody?
Sure, I'll share
Yeah.
that with all the participants, and
Yeah.
they can get
So,
in touch
so
with
I'll
you.
tell you, unfortunately, I will not be able to spend time one to one with. See, I used to once upon a time. In fact, I would have invited you to CCD, eat as much as you want, drink as much coffee as you want. But now I've become a little busy. So you'll have to come to that session where you will find about 15, 20 people. And if you send me a mail, I will just send you the invite once we schedule the session. Most likely, it will be on the 11th of November, but I'll let you know.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Uh, so I think Yash has observed. Yash has an observation here that when you are in a company, then you don't have time. You are so busy, right? So does it become a good time to contemplate about startup? Is
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So I'm saying the reason why you're working in a company is you're trying to get experience. You're trying to pick up maturity. And essentially, okay, let me put it very bluntly, you're learning at somebody else's expense, right? Rather than learning at your own expense, which you will do if you create your startup the day you pass out, right? That's all I'm saying. But yes, if you're clear you want to create a startup at the end of 2 years or 3 years, you'll definitely have to spend some time just floating around figuring out what the hell to do. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, who's such a successful person now, he is the founder of Naukri, right? What he has done is when he started Naukri, he spent about, I think, 4 or 5 years just figuring out what to do, just exploring. All right. And he keeps saying he lived with his parents and therefore घर का चूल्हा जलता था. Had he lived on his own, he would not have been able to do it, right? So, yes, when you are clear, you want to go ahead, you will have to take time off because I agree, you cannot have a 9 to 9 job, come back tired, and at the end of the day, you sit down and say, okay, now startup create karna. Nahi hoga. At some stage, you have to take the plunge.
Thank you. I just had one question which I asked, but then it was, I think there was another question. So what is the success rate that you observe, Dhruv, for the deep tech startups?
Okay. Okay. So, it actually depends on what your base is. So if you look at startups who have got funding, right? And I include everybody, not just deep tech. If you look at startups who have got funding, okay. So before talking about success rate, I will talk about failure rate, because there are some startups which are still going on and they can become very successful. They may not, we don't know, but they're still carrying on. So of the 35 odd startups that we have invested in, I would say about 7 or 8 have failed, right? So that's fairly small. That's about how much? 20-25%,
Very
right?
small. Yeah.
Yeah. However, I would say of these 35, about 5 have got really great exits, right? The
Oh,
rest of the, how much? About 22, 23 odd are in the category of chal raha hai, they're doing okay. Hopefully someday they'll do really well, but we don't know, right? So I would say of the investments we have made, 5 on 35 is how much? About 15% have been very good successes. However, this is the guys we've invested in. But you must remember, we normally invest in not more than 5 out of, say, 200 to 300 startups who apply to us, right? Which means the guy who has not even got funding, who only applied, from there the success rate would be much, much lower, much, much lower. I mean, I would imagine it will be about 2%.
Got it. Now you said that five, seven of them had good exit, so that means they raised their one formal round. Is what you're okay. Okay,
No, I'm saying, so I'm looking at 35 people who got angel funding. These
right.
five guys got at least one or two more rounds of funding at a
Great. Okay,
significantly higher valuation.
I see. I see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's a fairly good percentage, given that for a lot of them you still don't have a verdict whether they failed or they succeeded.
Correct.
So
You're right.
I think that's
So,
great.
in fact, we have been very good. The only problem is we still haven't got our Flipkart or Byju's. Hopefully, someday we will get it.
Definitely. Okay, so is there any other question, or I think we can conclude the
I
session?
think we can
Just
conclude.
wait. Yeah, guys, any other question? Please open your
Sir,
mic.
how do I make sure that my idea don't get stolen before I talk about it to anyone?
Okay. So, two comments. First of all, Saurabh, your background, your DP is at Manali. It looks like
Yes,
Manali.
sir. Yes, sir.
Hidimba Temple.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Arey wah. Okay, okay. That's a very common DP. A lot of people had that. Anyway, okay. So this is a very nice place to go to, by the way. It's up beyond Manali. It's a very peaceful place, and you can see deodar trees all over, and you can see Saurav in the background, in the foreground. Sorry. Okay. So this is it's a very strange question that I get sometimes. Please remember, ideas. Everybody has bright ideas, right? Nobody, you have an idea that by itself is meaningless. The key is, how do you execute that idea and build a solid business out of it? And if you have built a solid business with an entry barrier, it'll take the other guy, even if he has the same bright idea as yours, some time to copy your idea. All right. But if you have only an idea, you actually have nothing. So going to an investor with an idea is actually meaningless. You need to go to an investor with not just an idea, but with a business which you have created. Idea अगर
Yes,
सिर्फ
sir.
है,
Yes,
friends and
sir.
family
I
के
have
पास
a
जाओ.
whole business plan worked out. Whole
Yeah.
business.
No, but see, when you go to an angel investor with a business plan, you already have a running business, isn't it? That's what I keep saying. You need traction, otherwise the guy will not put money into your business. So you need a reasonably running business. And if your idea is so simple, so flimsy that anybody can steal it, then frankly you have no entry barrier and you shouldn't be in that business. So idea by itself is nothing. Ultimately, what is important is the business. And the business, as long as you have an entry barrier, is not going to be easy to copy. So don't look at only ideas. Ideas सबके होते हैं बॉस. मोदी जी कहते हैं 130 करोड़ देशवासी, हर एक के दिमाग में 50 आइडियाज हैं. So idea is nothing.
Uh, that's really true. And I think with that, we would like to conclude, since I don't see any other question coming out. And it was such a wonderful session, Dhruv. I think we enjoyed so much, and there were so many spontaneous questions. Just one last question, and that's the last. Please don't ask question after that. What do you have in mind about accelerators like Y Combinator and others? Do you think they're overhyped? So,
I think they are doing a great job. I think they're doing a great job for two, three reasons. One is they give you some money. Number two, they give you a decent amount of mentoring. And number three, they give you a lot of visibility. Right. So I think they're doing a great job. Um, I think when you say overhype, I'll tell you the problem I see, not just with accelerators, but in fact, I will take it a step forward with any funding. It should not become an end in itself. Look, I don't need money. I don't need to go to an accelerator, but I want Y Combinator with me. That is wrong. Similarly, I don't need money, but I must talk about my Series A funding at parties. Therefore, I must have funding. So I think that is the problem. All these things, whether it is accelerators, whether it is angel funding, VC funding, unfortunately, if required, it makes a lot of sense. But unfortunately, many people do it simply to get that to get that name because everybody is talking about it. That is wrong. That's my view.
I can see Anupam has joined just
Oh,
now. Anupam, would you like to make some concluding remarks because we are almost towards the end of the session?
hi Anupam, where are you? Can't see you.
I don't know whether Anupam has joined from phone or something.
Yeah. So I've joined on phone, Dhruv.
Hi Anupam, how are you?
I was in another meeting and just joined, and I had heard your talk yesterday when you gave it with Deep Kalra. So I really love your persistent concept, and I don't know what you have talked to Triple ITD audience, but your book is great, and I'm sure attendees have liked what they hear. So. Debarka, thanks for organizing this, and Dhruv is a great professor and a good friend.
Thank you so much,
Of
Anupam.
course, I think it was such a wonderful session, and we had a great interaction. Students asked about 15 questions. It can't be better. It was a small team, but I think it was a great, intensive session. Thanks
Wonderful.
a lot, Anupam, for the remarks, and Dhruv for being with us. And since you are on the verge of retiring, I guess we are going to get more of your time in enlightening our students and
Sure,
us.
most welcome.
Uh, Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
We'll have coffee together sometime
Yes,
when the
yes,
COVID era.
absolutely. And the tea and samosas you sent were great.
Yes, 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 definitely. Thank you so much, guys, and thanks
Okay,
everybody
thank you.
else for attending